Today we're going to analyze the beat of Word Up, Cameo's biggest hit. This song was covered many times, but none of these versions come remotely close to the funkiness and the iconic sound of the original. This is as 80s as it gets, gated reverb and LinnDrum included. Plus there's a good deal of sound design involved, so this time we'll also take a look behind the scenes and show you exactly which samples and plugins we used to create these sounds. We'll program the pattern on the OXI One sequencer so you can easily follow along and recreate this on your drum machine or in your DAW. Hello everyone, this is 116 BPM, and go. Hey, surprise! The kick pattern is not 4 on the floor. With that much adventurousness, we'll need something else to keep this danceable. And that job goes to the snare, a classic backbeat on the 2 and 4. Well, this is actually not a snare, but more on that later. The closed head plays on every beat. And we get a bonus one on the 3 and. There's one little specialty. Every other time this bar is played, there's a kick on step 16, a small transition that keeps it interesting. You could now double the pattern length and program that step just on the first bar, but why go through all this trouble when you have a modern sequencer with conditionals in front of you? I'll just tell step 16 to only play on the first of every 2 run-throughs, and we're done. Now that our bass pattern is complete, let's make a small detour and take a closer look at how we created the drum sounds in the digital audio workstation. Now we're inside Reaper, and the MIDI notes sent from the OXI One are coming in through this track. It's fed to an instance of TAL-Drum, a drum sampler into which we loaded all of our samples. Let's start with the kick. We used a LinnLM2 kick from Goldbaby's tape drum machine collection. Of course, there needs to be gated reverb on there. We routed the kick out to a separate track onto which we can put our effects. Valhalla VintageVerb does a really good job with its nonlinear algorithm. Remember that in this setting, the decay does nothing. You need to dial in the sound with shape and attack. Experiment until you get a gated reverb that breathes musically. Think of this as an extension of the kick. The timing has to be right, so it works with the beat. The reverb of course turned the kick into a stereo signal, but we want this to be anchored in the center, so it's not overpowering the stereo field. That's an easy fix though. Instead of sending the kick track with the reverb as a stereo signal to the drum bus, I'll just send the left channel in mono. The kick has to be tuned down by a few semitones. Use the fine control to make smaller adjustments. Let's have a look at the EQ decisions we made. This high pass gets rid of the lowest frequencies and makes the kick sound a little bit more defined. This peak will give the kick more of a thump or knock. This peak brings out more of those characteristic breathy frequencies of the gated reverb. This cut cleans up the mid-range to make room for other instruments. Next we added a compressor. This is one of my favorites for drums, the Arturia Diode 609. Super easy to dial in. A bit down with the threshold, and up with the makeup gain. I added a touch of limiting and turned down the mix knob to get parallel compression. This will affect the kick in two ways. It adds more punch, and it also brings up the reverb tail. Listen how much more lively it sounds with the compressor, especially on that double hit. Pitching down the kick did fatten it up, but it also took away its initial snap. One way to get it back is to add another layer to the kick. This sample is triggered by the same MIDI note as the kick, so they both always play together. We got this from Goldbaby's Urban Cookbook Volume 2. Remember to cut away the frequencies you don't want from the second layer. The undeniable centerpiece of Word Up's drum sound is its snare, which is actually a hand clap. I searched far and wide and finally found this sample in my collection. It's from Chromeo's Analog Catalog Volume 1. It sounds a bit weak at first, but if I pitch it down, let's say by about 7 semitones, it gets much heavier and beefier. The sample is now played slower, so it also becomes longer, including the reverb tail that was already baked into the sample. We want the clap to feel tighter though, so we cut off the sample here. That's another quick method to create a gated reverb sound. It's always good practice to cut away frequencies you don't need. You can actually see here in the spectrum that the hand clap has a lot going on in the lowest bass frequencies. And we definitely don't need these, so we'll cut them with a high-pass filter. I know it's not much, but across an entire mix, this can really make a difference and give you more headroom. A hand clap like this consists mostly of noise, so we can do some extensive tone shaping with just 2 EQ points. We also used Ozone Imager to make the clap stereo, just a gentle touch to spread it a bit more across the stereo field. The down pitching gave more body to the clap, but it also weakened the initial transient or snap. An easy fix, just like on the kick, is to simply layer another sound on top. Ideally a very bright one that doesn't interfere with the lower frequencies of the existing clap. Use a high-pass filter if necessary. To be honest, it's still a mystery to me where this first hand clap sound actually came from. The file name clearly suggests that it's from a Linn 9000, but this sounds nothing like the Linn 9000 clap. That being said, it was an EEPROM-based drum machine, so the stock hand clap chip in this particular machine might just have been swapped for a different one. Please let us know if you have any idea where this sound is from. And finally, these are LinnDrum hats, again from Goldbaby. Pan them a good deal to the left. We put a high-pass filter on here so that the obnoxious lower component of the hi-hat isn't as prominent. We only want the higher frequencies of the hats. Everything else would just muddy up the mix. To conclude this segment, let's listen to the pattern with just the raw samples without any panning or effects and compare it to the finished sounds. Now for some easy variations. The first one is to turn off step 16 so there's no double hit on the kick every other bar. Now each time you hear this sound, I'll reset the pattern back to this state. For this variation, we want the clap on beat 2 to only play on the second of every 2 run-throughs. Again, you could now double the pattern length and kill this step on the first bar, but I'll just use a conditional that saves me some time. Put an additional clap on the 3 end. On some patterns, the hi-hat plays only quarter notes, so just remove it on the 3 end. Swap the closed head on the 3 end for a clap and the closed head on the 4 for a cymbal. The cymbal is also from the LinnDrum. It's tuned up slightly, and just like the hi-hats, we also used a high-pass filter to get rid of some unwanted lower frequencies. You can use this variation as a conclusion or as a transition to other patterns. Now we'll add some funky tambourine parts to our pattern. This tambourine is again from the LinnDrum, and we actually have 3 different versions of it. One panned left, one in the center, and one panned right. For this first part, we'll play the tambourine twice on the right and once on the left. The first step is accented and gets full velocity. The other 2 are unaccented at half velocity. Let's listen to this in context. I'll unmute the bass pattern, which is on sequencer 1. The second tambourine phrase is a bit more elaborate. Let's make a copy of this and add 2 more tambourine hits in the center. These need to have a very low velocity. The next parts use 3 new sounds, 2 Simmons SDSV cracks, and a very dry hand clap from the Simmons Claptrap. Those sounds are all much fizzier in the original, but I think these will fit our end jam just fine. The SDSV sounds are panned left and right. The right one is a bit brighter, which we did by simply putting a low pass on both and having the right one cut away less of the high frequencies. This actually needs 2 bars, so let's extend the pattern to 32 steps. A very nice phrase that makes good use of the stereo field. To finish things off, we'll create another part based on this one. Some more hand claps. And in the second bar, we'll add more dynamics by lowering the velocity of a few steps. Combine this with the bass pattern with a double clap at the end. These are all the building blocks you need for the song. Just mix and match them to create lots of different patterns. If you want a handy printable overview, you can find this and many other drum transcriptions on our Patreon, along with lots of cheat sheets for your favorite drum machines, sequencers, and groove boxes. A big thank you to all of our patrons. Thanks to you, we can keep making these videos.